So there's a 24-hour rule in football where you have 24 hours to celebrate or to even be upset about your team's performance. So we got a little time to talk about what exactly went down Sunday at MetLife Stadium in the Giants' 28-6 loss to the Vikings. So let's do a little Monday morning quarterbacking with our New York Post Giants beat writer Paul Schwartz. Paul, I'm at a loss for words, man. I'm absolutely at a loss for words. This is you. We want to hear your thoughts. Thoughts on the game, but whatever you want to talk about on the field, off the field, your initial thoughts this Monday morning after looking back at what happened at MetLife Stadium in that loss against the Vikings.
Well, Brandon, I'm going to go with what you said. You said it's the 24-hour rule. So why don't we do this around 4 o'clock this afternoon, okay? And then I can say, it's 24 hours, Brandon. I don't have to talk about that opener anymore, okay? Because, look, as you know, as a player and the coaches, they got to decipher it and go through it. And we as professionals covering the team have to do that. But, I mean, my main takeaway with the boos. I mean, the boos so early. I mean, you know, you were there. It was a gorgeous day, right? It was what they call a Chamber of Commerce day. You know, come to East Rutherford in early September. You know, 65 degrees, no humidity, beautiful blue skies. All the legends and their families in the building for the 100-player, you know, best players in history celebration. And you know, 3 plays into the season, the Giants get the ball, and you know, there's a run by Devin Singletary for 2 yards. There's a Daniel Jones just looks to the side and throws the ball at the feet of Devin Singletary for a 6-yard loss. There's a penalty for a delay of game, which is ridiculous coming out of the chute. And then there's a drop by rookie Theo Johnson, and the Giants are punting. And the boos came out. It was less than 2 minutes into the season. So that shows you that the fans have a short shelf life this year. They have no real passion to see Daniel Jones and his offense do anything but play well. And if they don't play well, they're getting no sympathy or any patience or grace period at all, and it followed through the whole game. So, you know, that was a really distressing, other than depressing, a really distressing home opener for the Giants because the fans were in no mood to see this struggle again.
Yeah, the gloves were off when it came to it. I thought there would be like some sort of waiting period because I wanted to see Daniel Jones come out, throw for 200, 250, 2 touchdowns, and all the expectations were high. LT was in the building. Coach Coughlin was in the building. Coach Parcells in the building. So the expectations were high, and I'm thinking to myself, after that performance, was the pressure on Daniel Jones too much? And I don't mean offensive line, like a defensive line type pressure. Was the pressure and expectations of the home opener, Giants' 100th season, did that force him to have kind of the game he had? He was kind of off, Paul. He was off, and we've seen him off before, but he wasn't himself, and his accuracy wasn't there, like you said. Break that down for us, Paul, because you got to see it from the press box. You know, I'm running around, you know, doing the emceeing and stuff. So, what did you see when it came to his accuracy?
I didn't see a lot of it. Look, you're right. There were times where we broke down Daniel Jones, and it's bad decision, bad read, you know, didn't pull the trigger, threw into coverage, that kind of thing. But that was, I mean, look, he threw the ball right to Andrew Van Ginkel, you know, for a 10-yard pick six, and that was awful. It was a really good play by Van Ginkel, but the play was basically telegraphed, you know, to throw it to Wandale on the side there, you know, that little quick swing action. Mm-hmm. But I was really floored by as you mentioned, the inaccuracy, just the actual mechanics of throwing the football, you know. I think that first one to Devin Singletary, it was just a dump off. You know, these dump offs have to be, you know, 95% completed, and they have to hit the guy in target and on stride. And doesn't mean the guy's going to run for 50 yards, but you have to give him a chance. And the ball was thrown behind him and at his feet. Too many ground balls. You know, it looked like you know, those old Bob Cousy black and white tapes we used to see of him throwing bounce passes all over the place. So that was really, you know, and that's all footwork. Some of it's confidence, some of it's, you know, remember Sam Darnold a few years ago with the Jets in a game against the Patriots, I believe, said I was seeing ghosts out there, and that was the beginning of the end for him. You can't say that, and Daniel Jones didn't say that, but it looked like I don't know what he was seeing out there, but just the mechanics were awful for his footwork and his throwing motion. And you know, There was a lot of pressure on him going into this. As we know, the Giants tried to replace him in the offseason. They wanted to trade up in the draft to get a guy who could eventually replace him sooner rather than later. But you know what, Brandon? It's tough luck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was playing at home. It was a beautiful day. The heat was on him, but not, as you said, the pass rush was not overwhelming by any stretch. Brian Daboll even said they were not coming at him after him with all this heavy exotic pressure. They were playing a lot of two shell, forcing him to throw underneath and maybe beat him, with 10, 11, 12 play drives. And that was just off the board. That was not going to happen with the way he was throwing the ball.
Yeah, and we've seen him, we see him kind of come out slow before. And even the Houston Texans preseason game when he threw the pick six and then he threw the pick, he made two gorgeous throws to a Darius Slayton, to a Jalen Hyatt, and a Malik Neighbors. And that's another thing. Malik Neighbors, 5 catches, I believe, 65 yards, I believe, off of 7 targets. I'm surprised he didn't get any down the field throws. Like, I don't care if there are 2 people on him or whatever. We need to see his dynamics. That's why you draft a wide receiver 6 overall, because you want to see him act and make plays like a 6 overall pick. So Brian Daboll took over with the play calling. I guess what grade would you give Daboll on his first day, fully calling plays and being the OC for the Giants in that week 1 loss?
Well, he said that they did call some plays down the field. You know how that works, and sometimes they get thrown and sometimes they don't. And this time they did not get thrown. And so it'll be interesting when Brian Daboll looks at the film, if he says, or if he even admits, Daniel could have taken a shot here. Daniel could have taken a shot here. That's on Daniel too. If either the guy's not open or the protection breaks down or he just doesn't see it or doesn't feel comfortable with it. I think he is. Everyone said we wanted, with Brian Daboll calling the shots, that Daniel's going to let it loose. There was no letting it loose. There was none. It was a conservative game plan. I was surprised how often they used 2 tight ends in the game. Daniel Bellinger wasn't one of them. He didn't have a lot of time at all. But Theo Johnson played virtually every snap on offense. Manhurts played a lot of 2 tight ends. They had 2 running plays, the design runs to Daniel Jones in the second quarter that was very conservative. But as far as a grade, look, when you're the offensive play caller and your team doesn't score a touchdown, you get an F. That's what it is. You get an F. And like we've said before, sometimes it's not the plays that are called, it's the players and the execution. I think more so that is the case. But it was a conservative kind of, let's use 2 tight ends. And, I think we have to pump the brakes on this being the best receiver core Daniel Jones has ever had, just because, look, Jalen Hyatt barely got on the field. He had 1 target. He had 16 snaps. And, they wanted him this summer in an honest competition to beat out Darius Slayton, right? You know that. They want him on the field and, running those posts and goes and, things and fly patterns. And he did not beat out Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is still a more reliable receiver than him. So, therefore, Hyatt gets the scraps. And they didn't use a lot of 4 receivers. And when they did, just nothing doing.
Yeah, the Vikings were in the too high shell pretty much the entire game, wanted to keep everything in front of them. And I think that's the blueprint on how to kind of, stop this Giants offense. Keep all that speed in front of you, keep the plays in front of you, and make the Giants offense kind of beat you methodically. And they're just not there yet. Before we even talk about when you went into the locker room and we get into some locker room vibes, defensively, a lot of people upset or some fans upset thinking because Brian Burns didn't really do much or Kayvon Thibodeau didn't register a tackle. It seems like the same as last year, Paul, when they're trying to hold an offense to 6, 10, 12 points to stay in the game. It's hard to pass rush when a team has a lead and they just want to run the ball, and bleed that clock out. So what kind of stood out to you defensively when you were watching up in the press box?
Well, what stood out was that 99-yard touchdown drive. That was bad. Now, I know in the first series, where the not the first series, the first series where the Vikings scored, with Dory Jackson, that was a rough call.
Yeah.
That was a rough pass interference call. But I think, putting a lot of stock into Dory Jackson, coming off the streets to play, it was difficult. He missed a tackle on one play, didn't show a lot of real, appetite for making a tackle on one play. Look, the run, we said Shane Bowen coming in here, the run defense is going to be much better. It's going to be much more priority. Aaron Jones averaged almost 7 yards a carry, okay? As you said, Sam Darnold, you can't allow him to come into your building and complete his first 12 passes. He got, into a really much of a rocking chair kind of game. He didn't have to do a whole lot. He beat, Justin Jefferson beat Deontay Banks over the top for 44 yards. That's going to happen, right? He beat him on a short little in-cut for a touchdown. That's going to happen. I don't think the defense was nearly as culpable as the offense was in this. And, what did Brian Burns? He came here for what reason? He said, you know what, I'm going to be able to, unlike most of my games with the Carolina Panthers, I'm going to be able to come here. We're going to get a pass rush. We're going to have some leads. I'm going to be able to pin my ears back. There was no pinning of the ears back. Burns had, 4 tackles, no quarterback hits. Kayvon was invisible other than a, face mask penalty, which was very costly, leading to a touchdown drive. So, Tyler Nubin started. I thought he acquitted himself well. Giants had 5 rookie starters in the game.
Yep.
They're the second youngest starting unit in the league as far as age per starting players, and they had a bunch of rookies out there, so growing pains there. Drew Phillips, first snap, forced a fumble. That was great. He's a tough guy. But overall, defense was not great, not awful, not great. And like you said, when your team is behind and the Vikings didn't have to run it, didn't have to throw it, didn't have to do a whole lot. They didn't have to do anything in the fourth quarter, basically. So it's hard to get a lot of stats there, but definitely not a great first effort by any chance. They got to do a better job at stopping the run.
Yeah, all right. So after a loss like that, I remember, my former years as a player. After a loss like that, we don't want to talk to media at all. I know you guys want to come in, poke at us a little bit, poke at the players. What was the vibes like in the locker room? Obviously, it's not going to be celebratory, but did it look like a team like towards the end of the season last year where it was like, all right, we lost, it's over? Was there some sort of upbeatness in the locker room when you were talking to the players and Coach Daboll?
No, there was no upbeatness at all. I mean, not at all. I'm not saying they're cashing in the season by any chance or they think the season's over, but there was not upbeatness at all. I mean, the guys on defense, Burns didn't have a lot of great insight. Dexter Lawrence said, I don't respect it. Asked about the fans booing so well. He said, I don't respect it. Honestly, he said, I don't respect it, but, I understand they want us to win. They want us to come out and look good on opening day. But, that's an interesting statement. I would have liked if Dexter said, I don't like it, but I understand it. Nobody likes to get booed. Saying I don't respect it, I think was a little harsh to the fans, but if that's what he feels, that's what he feels. Kayvon, I don't think, took a whole lot of accountability for having a very quiet day. He was kind of wishy-washy a little bit in the locker room afterwards. Did say he thought he got his face mask, he got his hand in there a little bit, but Malik Neighbors, stood in there and said, Daniel said he was trying to throw me the ball, and, I don't know what was going on up there, and it wasn't a criticism of Daniel. It's like, you know this, right?
Yep.
After a game, if I asked you, Brandon, what was happening, why didn't you get the ball? What would you say? I ran my route and I turned around and the guy was getting sacked, or I ran my route and the ball went somewhere else, or I ran my route and the ball was, thrown over my head. So, receiver is running his routes. That's his job. His job is not to scan the field, what's going on in back of him, to see what's going on. So I think, Malik was fine for his first time out. But no, the locker room, Daboll said, in his post-game press conference several times, put it on me. It's on me. I have to do a better job. There's no doubt about that because, I really think for the second year in a row, this team did not look, certainly offensively, did not look prepared for a season. And Daboll did try to do some different things this summer, right? A lot more teamwork, a lot more 11 and 11 work, trying to get them more ready for the games. Maybe he has to rethink this. I'm not going to play most of my established starters or any of my established starters. Maybe I'm not going to play them in preseason, even though there's a risk of injury there if you do play them because, this is the second year in a row. The offense looked totally unprepared and, just not ready to start a season. And that's why the fans were booing. This looks like game 18 of 2023 rather than a new and fresh start in 2024.
Well, they're going to give themselves week 2 coming up. The Commanders look good. I forget who they were playing against, but Jaden Daniels kind of, battled things out in that game. We say in the NFL, you get better or you get as best as you're going to be from week 1 to week 2. You learn a lot about yourself. I know a lot of those players in that locker room, they're probably already in the film room watching the tape, dissecting it. Let's put this thing to bed, Paul, because I'm sure you're tired of talking about it as well. Going from week 1 to week 2, what's the schedule going to be like for these guys? And just your final thoughts to put this game to bed and start looking ahead towards the Washington Commanders.
Well, it's a typical week, right? Sunday game to Sunday game. None of this Thursday nonsense or Friday where you have short weeks or long weeks to start a season. So it's Sunday to Sunday. Giants will be. Players will be in today on Monday. They'll be off on Tuesday. Then they start hitting the Commanders preparation Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Travel, I guess, either by bus or train to, it's not a flight to Washington. And, short trip. The Giants have had success there. Daniel Jones is 3-1 playing FedEx Field, so that's something. But look, the clock is on. The clock is on Daniel Jones right now. He played so poorly in that first game that, it's you know what, Brandon? It's actually good they're going on the road. Now, it would not be good if they're going on the road to play in Dallas or Philly, but it's good they're going on the road to play a team that's 0-1 just like them, a team that they've been able to handle. The only team in the division they've been able to handle the last decade or so. It's a good thing because Daniel Jones needs to go on the road and get away from the fans. And I'm not criticizing the fans. They have a right. They don't have a right to chase him down in the parking lot after the game and boo him like some nut job did, and that's inexcusable. But they pay their very high ticket prices and their PSL prices, and they have a right to boo. They don't have the right to be jerks and be vulgar or anything like that. That's not a choice I would accept or stamp down on. Put my stamp on, but they certainly can boo. They booed a little early. That's not exactly showing support, but that's them. You're frustrated, you boo. So it's good the Giants are going on the road and kind of, face a hostile crowd that's not their own, because facing a hostile crowd that is your own is really, really tough.
Yeah, and this could be one of those band together type games. You got your rookies out there playing well. You got to get the vets up to speed. But like you said, going on the road, hostile crowd, it's kind of like a us versus everybody type mentality. This could be one of those games guys can come in, make some plays, go 1-1, and then you see what happens week 3 against the Cleveland Browns out in Cleveland. We're going to wrap this thing up now. For Paul Schwartz, I'm Brandon London. Thanks for tuning in, y'all.